I just love you, daddy's girls, because I wish I had that type of relationship with my dad where I can say I was a daddy's girl. But I wasn't, and it's okay. And it's okay because before my dad left this earth, we were able to talk, and we were able to not really have a daddy daughter's relationship because I'm just too old for that at this point. But we did have a conversation around why I couldn't be that daddy's girl to him. I wanted it, but unfortunately that just wasn't an option for me. And I said it was an option for me because my dad all my life has been on drugs. He's been an alcoholic, he's been after women just about all my life. And that's how I've known my dad. But I wish I had that type of relationship with my dad because when you don't have a relationship with your dad, or that relationship was really hard, you have daddy daughter issues. That is a real thing. And I've been married for 20, almost 26 years now, and together 29 years with my husband. And I had some serious daddy daughter issues in for the first 15, maybe 15, 17 years of our marriage. It was really bad. And that's another story for another time. But my dad, he was somebody that I absolutely loved. I loved him. And so I wanted that type of relationship with him, but it wasn't anything that he could just give me because of his circumstances and his situation. My dad was born and raised in New Orleans. I was too. He was born and raised in the Florida Project. I was too until I left at the age of, I think, 21 is when I left. And in that type of environment, that's all you see. There's drugs, there's alcohol, prostitution, um, murders, all of that. That's all you see. That's all you're around. That's who become your friends. Thankfully for me, that God had a different plan, and I also had a different plan for myself. My mentality was totally different. But that's where we grew up at. My dad could have really been a really great dad had he not been in that environment. And I noticed because his heart was just so good and he wanted to do good. He made sure that when I was younger, he would come and see me. I'm one of four kids of my dad's, and I'm the only girl. And so, that should have been a really special, special relationship, but it just wasn't. And so, my dad, he dropped out of school in 11th grade. He was shot in the head. He played hooky from school, and if you don't know what playing hooky is from school, that's when you leave school without permission from some type of authority. And so he played hooky. He was with some friends, and he told me he got shot in the head. He was about 16, 17 years old. He had me when he was probably about 19, and so he didn't finish school. His he wanted to go to the military is what he told me, but he couldn't do that anymore because after getting shot in the head, he had seizures all the time, and so he got on medication for that and started drawing SSI, all of that stuff. And so he fell prey to drugs. That was his only way that he knew how to cope. It became a sickness for him, and he didn't have anybody to stir him in the right direction. So he became a product of his environment. And they brought me into the world, him and my mom. Luckily, my mom was not on drugs, never have been. She's never done drugs, alcohol, never smoked cigarettes or anything like that. And so I was brought into this environment, and my dad was somebody who was in and out of prison. I remember going to see him in prison because of things that he did. What is funny about my dad is that even though he was a crackhead and an alcoholic, my dad will tell the truth. If you ask him something, even though if it meant that, even if it meant that he was going to serve time in prison, he was going to tell you that he did it. He just wasn't going to lie. He was an honest crackhead, and I say that with a smile because that's just who he was. And that's one of the things that I loved about my dad is that when I asked him something, he told me the truth. And so my dad, he would ask me to bring my children to come and see him. We have three kids, And he would constantly ask me to bring my kids to come and see him, and I was like, why would I do that? We don't have a relationship. We talk, yes, we call and say hello, check up on each other. Why would I do that? I'm not bringing my children to see you in that environment. And um and so anyway, it got to the point to where my dad kept asking me that, kept asking me that. And I remember being at the age of 40, I told my dad, I said, listen, we need to have a talk, because for some reason you think that we have this relationship that I know that we don't have. And I explained to my dad, how I felt about him. I did it in a loving way. I made sure I was very tactful for what I said to my dad. I wasn't trying to hurt his feelings or anything like that, but he needed to know the truth. And so I said to him, we don't have that type of relationship. You know, it's you're lucky that I'm even talking to you. But because I have respect for my dad and I never disrespected him or tried to disrespect him in any kind of way, I knew that I had to have this conversation with him. And when I explained to him how much I knew he could have been a really great dad, I said, I knew you could have been a really great dad because your heart is so good, so good. And he listened and he cried and I cried. And what I love about my dad at that moment is that he took accountability. He didn't blame anybody. He didn't blame my mom. He didn't blame his circumstances, his situation. He took responsibility. And he said to me, he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wish I can make it better. I wish I can do things over again. But I said to my dad, it's okay. I said, we're just going to start where we are. Now, we may not have this relationship where, I'm calling you and I'm telling you all the good things, or because that we cannot have that type of relationship, that type of conversation, because we just couldn't. And so, but we moved on past that. And I was there for my dad when he needed me. He died last year. He was actually hit by a car. I wouldn't have never thought in a million years that my dad would get hit by a car. I would have thought he would have died from an overdose of drugs or alcohol or this woman that he stayed fighting with. I That's the way I thought I would have lost my dad, not by a car accident, but that's how it happened. And I was devastated when I got the call that my dad was killed, because almost every day he would call me to tell me that he loved me, or he would call me to say, I'm proud of you. We didn't talk long, we only talked for about maybe 5-10 minutes because we really didn't have anything to talk about. And so we would talk that long. And I do miss that. I miss that, from my dad, because there's been some really great things that has happened in my life. And sometimes I do, not that I regret it, but sometimes I do wish I would have told him about all the wonderful things that was happening in my life before he died. But some things my dad just couldn't comprehend. He was 70 when he was hit by a car. And it's just really sad that that happened to him. But I tell you this, we did take my children to see him a couple of years ago. So he did get a chance to visit with our children, and they did get pictures with him and all of that. Even though I didn't have that relationship, that dad and daughter relationship with my dad, we have two daughters and a son, and they have that with my husband. And so I am so happy about that. And also, I have that direct daddy relationship with my father up above. So, I'm not really missing out on anything. But honest, if I'm being honest, at this big old age of 50, I do sometimes wish that I would have had a daddy that I can call on, and tell him I'm hurting, tell him, or just wanting to hear him say, it's going to be okay. And, you know, if you ever need me, I'm here, and really mean it. And I didn't, but it's okay, because I got a chance to tell my dad, to talk to him, tell him how much I love him, tell him how much I forgive him, and all of that. And we got to share that moment. So if you have a father that you are mad with, that you are upset with, and he wasn't there for you and all of that, and you turned out okay, you turned out fine, it's okay. Forgive him. Call him and tell him that you forgive him. Call him and tell him that you love him. Especially if you have children and your husband or partner is treating your children right and they can lean in on their dad, then you have been given another chance. So call your dad and tell him you love him before it's too late. I'm so happy that I did this with my dad, because I have no regrets. I don't feel guilty about any of it. I have good memories of him. And you can have good memories still of your dad if he's still here. So make the call.